The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said.
Hello everyone, this is No One of Consequence, back again with a new video. This is the 11th episode in a series which recounts my ongoing Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which is now in its 9th year. If you've been enjoying this content, please consider hitting the like button on this video, and if you haven't, please consider subscribing as well. So, as always, a spoiler alert, I will be revealing details about this adventure module in this video. So last time, you remember, the characters cleared out several rooms containing fighters that claim they worked for the big bosses, as they described them, located deeper in the dungeon. Most of them were defeated. A few were taken prisoner. The characters got information from them and then released them on the promise of future good behavior. And then the characters returned to Hamlet, and the Sergeant Major continued with his sermonizing about Foltus there. You can see him in front of the fireplace. So, the next day, the characters returned to the temple and went back down the same way to the second level, only this time, instead of going down on that lower right-hand passage, they went down the lower left-hand side. The difference this time is that they brought with them Felipe the guard dog, and the reason is because I had found online some house rules where animals that characters often have, like dogs, horses, mules, could gain experience and level up and even perhaps get new skills. But the requirement is, of course, they have to actually adventure. And so the characters, especially Quint, was excited about it, so he insisted that they bring Felipe the guard dog this time. So the characters went down that passage I mentioned on the last slide and soon entered a large room which turned out to have a minotaur in it. And you can see already some of the characters have taken damage from the thing. And of course, with that many characters, it didn't take long for them to defeat it. So then, after beating it, they were convinced that it must have some loot somewhere, and Garrett, the thief, poking around the throne, he eventually figured out that it slides off to the side, and so the characters found in it a container which they took with them, but they did not want to open it at the time. So, moving on, exploring down here, the characters came across a room which contained a bunch of lumber, which apparently was being used for the renovation of the temple, but nothing else of value in there. They found another area which contained a large cistern of water, which was interesting, but no one was willing to actually get in the water and see if there was anything to be found. They just left it. Then going down another hallway, the characters found a passage that branched off to the east, and they decided to check that way. And they went not too far along, and they started smelling the smell of rotting garbage. And Felipe was up ahead, and of course, being a dog, he was attracted to smells like that. And as soon as he entered the room, this monster burst out of the garbage and attacked the dog. And I don't know how other people pronounce it. I pronounce it Ochiog. And you can see there on the far right-hand side the monster, and it's hard to tell with all the jumble of garbage, but the monster and Felipe the guard dog are both in there. And the monster is actually in the process of eating the dog. Now, you can see the text there. The Sergeant Major was all for everybody running while the monster was busy eating the dog. However, the rest of the characters decided that they would try to save Felipe instead. So you can see Obrak and Aramis rushing in. However, it was too late. The dog didn't have that many hit points, and this thing is pretty big. And the dog was dead. And you can see the comments there. Quint, whose idea it was to bring the dog in the first place, was pretty cavalier about the whole thing. And the characters moved in more to fight the thing. You can see that Aramis especially took some damage from it, but eventually they were able to defeat the monster. Then, exploring another passage, they found a door which was barred, or at least locked. I can't remember. And while they were messing around with it, trying to figure out how to get in, some bugbears rushed down the passage to the left and began attacking the characters. And then in this scene, the characters decided to do like a fighting withdrawal, and they killed some of the monsters. And now they were worried about what might come out of that door. They were trying to get inside, so Thorol cast a wizard lock on it, and that's what that W symbol you can see. And Obrak and the Sergeant Major are still fighting, but you can see they've taken damage, and the rest of the characters are falling back. And finally, to cover their withdrawal, Thorol cast a web spell, which blocked the corridor and trapped the bugbears that were still alive. And the characters went back to the inn and spent another evening hanging out there at their usual table. And that night, after the characters had gone to sleep for the night, Thorol was awakened by his owl that began hooting really loudly. And Thorol woke up just in time to see this dark figure crawling through the window of his room at the inn. And I put a token there at the very top so that the characters could see what exactly this figure looked like. And once the owl started hooting and the characters, well, in this case, Thorol and Aramis are in the same room because it's the same player controlling those characters. But once this figure crawling in the window realized that his cover had been blown, he retreated back out the window before anyone could do anything. And the reason behind all of this, again, spoilers, the module says that if in the moat house, if Loreth the Beautiful is defeated or killed, then an assassin would be sent within a certain period of time to get revenge on the people who had done it. And if you go all the way back to the video where they cleared out the moat house, I used this screenshot back then, you can see even so far as Thorol and Quint there, you know, they had even looted the furniture out of Loreth's quarters and brought it back to town to sell. And also specifically, Loreth had this magic item, a Staff of Striking, which can only be used by clerics and magic users, and part of Thorol's share of the loot was to get that staff. So he had been going around town carrying that Staff of Striking, which, you know, was a recognizable item, and so it had been noted that he was clearly involved with the killing of Loreth, and so that's why Thorol was targeted by that assassin. So part of the precautions Thorol took the next day was he insisted that he and Aramis switch places in the room so that Aramis was by the window and Thorol would take the bed further away. And then Thorol also talked to Elmo. You know, like I said earlier, that Elmo right now is still not, they still really don't know who he is. but they do know that he's always on the lookout for some easy money to buy drinks at the inn. So Thorol offered to pay Elmo to basically sit up all night in his room and stand guard, so that in case the assassin came back, and Elmo could give the alarm and help as well. And so Elmo agreed to do that. He would set up in Thorol's room at night and keep watch. Meanwhile, the Sergeant Major had resumed his place in front of the fireplace and started giving another sermon. And you can read it there on the right-hand side. But you also notice that the Sergeant Major is doing a lot of coughing and hacking. And I had told the player for the Sergeant Major that he was having those coughing fits, and so he went along with it and was putting it in the text. And the reason why that was happening was, if you recall in the last episode, the characters had found a room, a mausoleum, that contained a bunch of coffins, and the module says if the characters disturb these coffins, there's a chance that each of them could contract a respiratory disease, and I made a secret saving throw rolls for that, and the Sergeant Major failed. So that's why you see him having those coughing fits when he was giving his sermon there. Then another thing that happened this day, the characters had found and brought back a small wooden chest that was locked, and they were afraid that it might be trapped, and so they took it outside, put it on the ground, and then Thorol cast a knock spell on it to break it open, and it turns out it was trapped, and unfortunately all the characters were standing nearby, and it exploded into a poison gas cloud, and you can see all the characters standing around. Some were definitely within range, others not. And so a couple of more failed saving throws, but the characters had, I can't remember, like potions or something. Anyway, they were able to negate the effects of whoever was affected by it, with no one actually dying. So after all that excitement, the characters decided to spend another day resting at the inn, and so that evening, Garrett decided to get in on some gambling in the private room next to their table, and that's the screenshot here. And Garrett, when his first game he sat down to, he won right away, and of course the others there got a little suspicious, but then as I played more games, it was everybody won or lost evenly. So, no problems came of it, and Garrett promised that he would come back and maybe even run some games of his own in the future. So the characters got up the next day. They were going to return to the temple, but Quint did not come down from his room, and they knocked on the door, no answer. They eventually got Osler to come up and unlock the door so they could find out what's going on. And they found Quint in his bed, and he was dead. There was a black dagger stuck in his chest, and the window was open, and so Quint had been assassinated, and that was that for him. And the reason he was targeted was that Loreth the Beautiful was wearing this really nice set of black plate mail, and Quint had received that as his share of the loot. So he had been seen her walking around town and at the end wearing that plate mail, and so everyone, whoever in town is involved knew that Quint was involved with the killing of Loreth, and so Quint was targeted. And so he was a cleric of St. Cuthbert, so the characters went to the local church, and Turgeon and Calmert came, and took Quint's body back to the church for burial, and that's what you see here. The church, as you can see, the churchyard is rapidly filling up. Now, this whole assassination thing played out over a couple of game sessions, and the player who was running Quint told me offline that he really wasn't interested in having Quint resurrected because, well, one, the characters didn't have enough money for it, but also, if you remember way back in the first episode, Quint was not even his character to begin with. There was another person who dropped from the campaign after the first game session, but the other players kept Quint because he was their only cleric. And so another player adopted the character and had been running him ever since. But he told me that now that the Sergeant Major was there, they had another cleric, and so instead of Quint, he wanted to bring back his old character, Varys the Elf. And if you go again back to probably the second video, Varys was there. And then there was a side adventure where the party helped a band of wood elves. And after that was completed, Varys decided to stay with the wood elves, and he left the party at that point, but now he's returned and is going to rejoin the other characters. Only he's different now. His time with the other wood elves, he had his mind had been open to some new things, and he had changed his look. And this was his new icon that the player chose. And he also had been introduced to a thing that the player calls elf root. And it was a plant found in the forest that the wood elves cultivated, and they dried the root and ground it up, and it was a mind expanding thing that they used. And I've found you may have seen some of these meme cartoons online elsewhere. I would give credit, but I don't know who made them. But so this is Varys now. He is very much into the elf root and the use of that. And so back downstairs, Varys had explained that in one of his elf root induced trances, he had visions that his old adventuring friends were battling a great evil and had gotten into some trouble and could use help. And so he told the other wood elves that he was leaving, and he put his adventuring gear back on and traveled. He had to trace the characters. He went back to the village of Valerial and then moved on from there, and eventually found that the characters had come here to Hamlet. And so he turned up here, and of course most of the characters already know Varys, but the Sergeant Major had never met him, and the Sergeant Major is always suspicious. So he thought it odd that the very same day that Quint had been assassinated, this new guy Varys shows up. But everybody else vouched for him, and so he let it go. And then the other new development with the Sergeant Major is the ostler there in the inn told him, enough is enough. No more sermonizing in the common room at the end. It's causing too much trouble. The other patrons don't like it. And he told him he couldn't do it anymore. And so the Sergeant Major had contracted the local carpenter to build a pulpit just outside the entrance to the grounds there, the inn, right on the road. And so he had this pulpit built and would do his sermonizing out there. But so far, as you can see, the only audience he had for his sermon was the the birds and the beasts, but he was contented with that, at least for the time being. All right, so that's all I have for now. Again, if you liked this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment. Comments are always good. And share the video. The more you interact with the video, the more YouTube will recommend it to other people. So anything you can do, I appreciate it. Thanks again. Bye for now.
The greatest adventure is what